world of Japanese muscle cars has given us some of the most legendary rides in automotive history, but not all legends are built the same. In this countdown, we're diving into the 10 shocking Japanese muscle cars that redefined performance, turned heads, and left the competition in the dust. From revolutionary rotary engines to iconic turbocharged beasts, these cars didn't just race, they changed the game forever. 1970 Datsun 240Z. Let's kick things off with the OG Japanese muscle car that took the world by storm, the 1970 Datsun 240Z. You might know it as the Nissan Fairlady Z in Japan, but make no mistake, this car wasn't some delicate ballerina. It was Japan's punch to the gut of European sports car makers, and boy did it land hard. Think of it as the David to Ferrari and Porsche's Goliath. But this David didn't just win, it strutted off the battlefield while flipping its mullet in the wind. The 240Z was powered by a 2.4-liter inline-six engine that churned out 151 horsepower. Not crazy by today's standards, but back in the 1970s, this was rocket science for a car costing just $3,500. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $25,000 today, or basically the price of a Corolla. And that's the kicker. While you were busy saving for a Porsche 911 or a Jaguar E-Type, this Z gave you similar thrills without the need to sell your kidney. Here's where it gets interesting. In its first year alone, Datsun sold over 16,000 units in the US. That number exploded to over 150,000 units by 1973. It was affordable, reliable, a word Europeans weren't familiar with at the time, and had killer styling inspired by the Jaguar E-Type and Ferrari 750 GTB. But unlike its pricier inspirations, the 240Z wouldn't leave you stranded on the side of the road while leaking oil like a sieve. 1989 Nissan Skyline GT-R. So, the 1989 Nissan Skyline GT-R R32, also known as Godzilla. And no, I'm not exaggerating here. This car was so monstrous on the track that the Aussies literally nicknamed it Godzilla. Imagine a beast so powerful it made its competitors look like they were stuck in reverse, all while being a street-legal car you could park in your mom's driveway. Let's get into the nuts and bolts. The R32 Skyline GT-R was powered by the legendary RB26 DETT engine, a twin turbocharged 2.6-liter inline-six that cranked out 276 horsepower. But here's the dirty little secret. That 276 horsepower figure was a lie. Thanks to Japan's gentleman's agreement at the time, automakers capped their advertised horsepower to avoid a horsepower arms race. In reality, the R32 was pushing closer to 320 horsepower, making it a total sleeper. And let's talk about the drivetrain. This wasn't your average car. It featured Nissan's cutting-edge Atessa ETS all-wheel drive system and Suprahica's four-wheel steering. Translation? It handled like a video game cheat code. On twisty mountain roads or racetracks, the R32 gripped corners like a cat clinging to a couch. Here's the fun part. The R32 wasn't just fast, it was dominant. It entered the Japanese Touring Car Championship, JTCC, and immediately annihilated the competition, winning 29 races out of 29 starts between 1989 and 1993. That's right, undefeated. And when it competed in the Australian Touring Car Championship, it was so dominant that the governing bodies had to rewrite the rules to ban it. Imagine being so good at a sport that they have to change the rules to stop you. 1992 Mazda RX-7. If cars had dating profiles, the 1992 Mazda RX-7 FD3S would have swiped left on anything with a V8 and written "rotary or bust" in its bio. This sleek, lightweight sports car wasn't just a head-turner, it was a rebel. While most manufacturers were stuffing their engines with more cylinders, Mazda said, "What if we throw out the rule book and stick with a 1.3-liter rotary engine instead?" The result? An automotive masterpiece that could dance circles around its rivals and look damn good doing it. Under the hood, or rather under that ridiculously low-slung hood, you'll find Mazda's 13B REW twin-rotor rotary engine, capable of producing 252 horsepower in its earliest configuration. Doesn't sound like much? Well, consider this. The RX-7 only weighed 2,800 pounds, thanks to Mazda's obsession with keeping things light. Combine that power-to-weight ratio with near-perfect 50-50 weight distribution, and you've got a car that drives like it's glued to the road. But here's the kicker. That rotary engine was a double-edged sword. Sure, it revved to the moon and sounded like an angry swarm of bees, but it also had the reliability of a middle school group project. If you didn't know how to take care of it, read pre-mix oil like a two-stroke dirt bike, you were looking at blown apex seals faster than you could say rotary rebuild. Still, enthusiasts didn't care. This was their car, quirks and all. The RX-7 wasn't just a marvel on the road, it was a legend on the big screen and in the tuner world. Remember Dominic Toretto's red RX-7 from the original Fast and Furious movie? That car alone made this thing a pop culture icon. And the aftermarket scene? Oh boy, people were slapping turbos on these like stickers on a laptop, pushing them well beyond their factory power limits. A properly tuned RX-7 could easily hit 400 to 500 horsepower, making it a nightmare for unsuspecting supercars at the drag strip. 1993 Toyota Supra MK4. The 1993 Toyota Supra MK4 A80. The car that turned Paul Walker into a legend and sent car enthusiasts everywhere into a turbocharged frenzy. This isn't just a car, it's a culture. Ask any car lover about their dream garage, and odds are, this beauty is parked front and center, probably alongside a box of tissues for the tears of joy it brings. Let's talk power, because honestly, that's what makes the MK4 Supra such a deity among Japanese muscle cars. Under its long, aggressive hood sat the 2JZ GTE, a 3.0-liter twin turbocharged inline-six engine that was basically over-engineered by Toyota just for fun. From the factory, it produced 276 horsepower, but come on, we all know the real story. The 2JZ was a tuning god. It could handle over 1,000 horsepower on stock internals, which means you could slap on bigger turbos, crank up the boost, and watch it embarrass supercars that cost 10 times as much. Here's the shocking part. The MK4 Supra wasn't initially a hit. Toyota sold just 11,239 units in the US between 1993 and 1998. Why? Because at a starting price of $40,000, it was competing with the likes of the Corvette, and most people couldn't wrap their heads around paying that much for a Japanese car. Fast forward to today, and clean, low-mileage examples sell for well over $100,000. If you've got a rare 6-speed manual model, you might as well be sitting on a gold mine. 1997 Honda NSX Type R. If the Toyota Supra is the heavyweight brawler of Japanese muscle cars, the 1997 Honda NSX Type R NA2 is its surgical counterpart, a precision scalpel designed to carve up racetracks and leave Ferraris crying in the corner. The NSX Type R wasn't just a car, it was a philosophy. Honda wanted to prove that you didn't need a V12 or a six-figure price tag to take on the best supercars in the world. The heart of the NSX Type R was its 3.2-liter V6 engine, which produced 290 horsepower. Doesn't sound like much, right? But here's the kicker. The car only weighed 2,800 pounds, thanks to Honda's obsessive use of lightweight materials. We're talking aluminum chassis, titanium connecting rods, and even thinner windshield glass. This thing was so light, it made diet soda look heavy. The NSX Type R wasn't just about straight-line speed, it was about balance. With its mid-engine, rear-wheel drive layout and near-perfect weight distribution, it handled like an extension of your own body. Ayrton Senna himself helped fine-tune the NSX's chassis, which is basically like having Michelangelo give pointers on your painting. What made the 1997 model particularly special was its Type R treatment. Honda stripped out anything that wasn't essential: air conditioning, sound insulation, even some carpeting, just to shave off a few extra pounds. The result was a car that felt raw, alive, and utterly uncompromising. Here's the jaw-dropper. Honda only made 483 units of the NA2 NSX Type R, making it one of the rarest Japanese performance cars ever. Today, finding one in good condition is like finding a unicorn, and if you do, you'll need at least $200,000 to bring it home. 2002 Subaru Impreza WRX STI. If there's one car that can drift through snow, leap through dirt, and still look good in a downtown parking lot, it's the 2002 Subaru Impreza WRX STI GDB. This is the car that took rally racing and street performance and shoved them into one turbocharged all-wheel drive masterpiece. If you're thinking, oh, it's just another Subaru, let me stop you right there. This isn't just a Subaru, it's the Subaru. The one that made everyone want to slap a giant wing on the back of their sedan and yell, "It's for downforce!" Let's talk specs. The heart of the GTB was the legendary EJ20 engine, a 2.0-liter turbocharged flat 4 that cranked out 276 horsepower. Combine that with Subaru's signature symmetrical all-wheel drive, and this car could grip the road like a toddler clinging to their favorite toy. Add in a 6-speed manual gearbox, and you had a car that was as thrilling as it was versatile. It wasn't just fast in a straight line, it could dance through corners, rain or shine. The real magic, though, came from Subaru's rally heritage. The GTB was bred for the World Rally Championship, WRC, and boy did it deliver. Drivers like Peter Solberg took this car to victory, making Subaru a household name in motorsport. The road-going STI wasn't just inspired by the rally car, it practically was the rally car, just with a few more creature comforts and fewer flying rocks. 2008 Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution X. Enter the 2008 Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution X, the final chapter in Mitsubishi's epic rally car saga and the car that could turn any commute into a special stage. The Evo X was that one friend who's polite and calm on the outside, but secretly knows 5 different martial arts and has a black belt in all of them. At its core was the 4B11T engine, a 2.0-liter turbocharged inline-4 that cranked out 291 horsepower. But the real star of the show was the Super All-Wheel Drive Control S-AWC system, a piece of tech so advanced it made other all-wheel drive systems look like they were built with duct tape. The S-AWC wasn't just about grip, it actively distributed power to the wheels that needed it most, making the Evo X corner like it was on rails. The Evo X wasn't just about tech though. Its design was bold and aggressive, with sharp lines and gaping front grille and a rear spoiler that screamed, "Don't mess with me." Inside you got Recaro bucket seats that hugged you tighter than your mom after you came home late. And unlike most sports cars, the Evo X managed to be practical, with enough room for 4 adults and a decent-sized trunk. It was the kind of car you could daily drive without sacrificing performance. But here's where things get spicy. Mitsubishi retired the Evo after this generation. Yup, the Evo X was the swan song for a legendary nameplate. Fans were heartbroken, and some still haven't forgiven Mitsubishi for pulling the plug. Yet, this final model became a cult classic, with enthusiasts snatching up clean examples faster than you can say turbo lag. And here's the fun fact. Mitsubishi offered a limited final edition of the Evo X in 2015, with only 1,600 units made for the US market. It featured a bump in horsepower, unique badging, and a paint job that made it stand out even more. If you've got one of these, you're basically sitting on a piece of rally history. 1999 Nissan Silvia S15 Spec R. The 1999 Nissan Silvia S15 Spec R is the kind of car that makes you want to quit your job, move to Japan, and spend your days perfecting the art of drifting. This wasn't just a sports car, it was the ultimate sports car coupe, combining sleek looks, turbocharged power, and rear-wheel drive shenanigans in one irresistible package. Under the hood was the legendary SR20 DET engine, a 2.0-liter turbocharged inline-4 that delivered 250 horsepower in the Spec R trim. It might not sound like much by today's standards, but back in the late 90s, this was the stuff of dreams. The SR20 was also a tuner's paradise, capable of handling ridiculous amounts of boost with the right modifications. It wasn't uncommon to see these cars pumping out 400 plus horsepower with ease. But the real charm of the S15 wasn't just its engine, it was the way it drove. Thanks to its lightweight chassis and perfectly balanced suspension, the S15 was a joy to toss around corners. Drifters fell in love with it, and it became a staple in events like Formula Drift. Even if you weren't into drifting, the S15's precise steering and engaging handling made every drive feel special. 1990 Mazda RX-7. Let's rewind to the late 80s and early 90s when Mazda decided to sprinkle a bit of magic onto their sports car lineup. Enter the 1990 Mazda RX-7 FC 3S, a car powered by an engine that defied convention and logic, the rotary engine. You know, the one that doesn't use pistons, just spins around and says, who needs reliability when you've got vibes? The FC RX-7 was equipped with the 13B REW engine, a 1.3-liter twin-rotor beast that produced 200 horsepower in the Turbo 2 trim. Now, I know what you're thinking. 200 horsepower? That's not shocking. But here's the kicker. The RX-7 weighed about as much as your grandma's old sewing machine, tipping the scales at just 2,800 pounds. That made it ridiculously agile and fast, like a caffeinated squirrel on a sugar rush. The real secret sauce of the FC was its handling. Mazda's engineers were clearly sipping something strong when they developed the RX-7's 50-50 weight distribution and suspension setup. It handled corners like it was glued to the road, earning it the nickname, the poor man's Porsche. But let's be honest, it wasn't poor at all. It was rich in character and thrills. Here's something shocking. Mazda only made about 22,000 Turbo 2 FC RX-7s for the US market, making it a bit of a unicorn today. Prices were reasonable back then, with a new RX-7 Turbo 2 costing around $22,000, or the equivalence of a decently equipped family sedan. Fast forward to today, and enthusiasts are shelling out big bucks for clean, unmodified examples, if they can even find one. 1973 Nissan Skyline GT-R. When people hear the name Skyline GT-R, they usually think of the modern-day legends like the R34. But the 1973 Nissan Skyline GT-R, lovingly nicknamed Kinmari, is where the story gets seriously interesting and seriously rare. This car was the sequel to the legendary Hakosuka GT-R, and Nissan decided to go all out, even if it meant building something that would become an automotive unicorn. First, let's talk numbers. Nissan only built 197 units of the Kinmari GT-R, making it rarer than finding a parking spot in downtown Tokyo. Why so few? Because stricter emissions regulations in Japan came crashing down in the early 70s, forcing Nissan to discontinue the car shortly after it launched. Today, those lucky 197 examples are considered holy grails for collectors, often fetching prices north of $500,000 at auctions. Under the hood, you got the S20 engine, a 2.0-liter inline-six with 160 horsepower. That might not sound like much, but the Kinmari wasn't about brute force. It was about balance and precision. The S20 was derived from Nissan's racing program, and its high-revving nature made it a joy to drive. Combine that with a lightweight chassis and rear-wheel drive, and you had a car that handled like a dream. But what really made the Kinmari GT-R iconic was its design. It was named after a fictional couple, Ken and Mary, who starred in its TV commercials. Picture a romantic montage of winding roads, sunsets, and a gorgeous silver GT-R slicing through the scenery. The commercials were so iconic that the car's nickname stuck. And let's not forget those quad-round taillights, which would go on to become a signature feature of Skyline GT-Rs for decades.